Now, this is the part I'm really scared about. Orders regarding discriminatory practices. A discriminatory practice, as described in sections 5 to 14.1, may be the subject of a complaint, and anyone found to be engaging or have engaged in a discriminatory practice may be subject to an order. And as I read to you earlier, they include an internet posting as a discriminatory act. It's not. A discriminatory act is when you choose amongst things based on some characteristics. So discrimination is you're allowed to come into this restaurant, you're not. You're allowed to book a ticket on this airline, you're not, based on race or religion or whatever. We do allow certain discriminations. If you're a child of tender years, you're not allowed to buy a ticket because you're too young. We obviously have certain discrimination, but unlawful discrimination is what I've just described. Giving your opinion on the internet is not discrimination. How's that discrimination? You haven't altered someone's life other than through an idea. You haven't taken any action. That is now covered by the Human Rights Act. So look at this next section here. 13.1, this is what Stephen Harper's government repealed. They're bringing it back. It is a discriminatory practice to communicate or cause to be communicated hate speech by means of the internet or any other means of communication in a context in which the hate speech is, again, future crime, likely to foment detestation or vilification of an individual or group of individuals on the basis of a prohibited ground of discrimination. So you didn't actually interfere with anyone's life. You didn't ban them from a building. You didn't deny them service at a restaurant. You didn't refuse to bake a cake. You just posted something on the internet. And if that could cause him or her to have hard feelings towards the transgender man going into the girls' changing room, you're guilty. Subsection 2, for the purposes of subsection 1, a person communicates or causes to be communicated hate speech so long as the hate speech remains public and the person can remove or block access to it. So everything you've ever read, written, or said historically can now get you convicted. Exception, this section does not apply in respect of private communication. Definition of hate speech. We've already read this earlier. Content that expresses detestation or vilification on a basis of prohibited grounds. And I've already told you that includes gender identity, gender expression. I'm just scrolling through this stuff. Now, one of the most important things in our legal system is, in fact, it's a charter right, it's the ability to face your accuser, to face the charges, to know who's prosecuting you. We don't have secret trials in Canada. We have certain parts that are subject to publication bans to protect the identity of children or if there's some national security reasons, but there are no secret trials in Canada. It's not like the Star Chamber, secret trials centuries ago in the UK. But look at this section here, non-disclosure of identity. This is absolutely insane. The Human Rights Commission may deal with a complaint in relation to a discriminatory practice described in Section 13 without disclosing to the person against whom the complaint was filed or to any other person the identity of the alleged victim, the identity or group of individuals that has filed the complaint, or any individual who's given evidence or assisted the Commission in any way in dealing with the complaint, if the Commission considers that there is a real and substantial risk that any of those individuals will be subjected to threats, intimidation, or discrimination. What does that even mean? Well, I'll tell you what it's going to mean. So you will receive notice one day that you are being prosecuted. You won't know who filed the complaint. You won't know who gave evidence against you. You don't know who has helped the Commission prosecute you. You won't have any of that information. You won't know if it's a disgruntled ex-employee. You won't know if it's a for-profit company who's decided to make complaints for cash. You won't know if it's an extremist activist. You won't know if it's the Liberal Party of Canada trying to embarrass their opponents. That's what that says, non-disclosure of identity. Let me read to you Section 9, the next section. The commission may order a person who, in the course of the commission's dealing with a complaint in relation to a discriminatory practice described in this section, has learned the identity of the alleged victim, the individual or group of individuals that filed the complaint, or any individual who's given evidence or assisted the commission, not to disclose the identity. So if you find out, or if anyone finds out who's hunting you, you can be ordered to keep that a secret. This is not a Canadian law. There's no law like this anywhere in Canada. We have certain official secrets laws. We have certain laws protecting the identity of children. But this protects hunter-killer race hucksters, like the kind that swarm the Trudeau Liberals. Every for-profit complainer of fortune, every victimologist, every race huckster, gender huckster, transgender huckster, they will now be able to file dozens, hundreds, thousands of complaints against their enemies in secret. And if you find out who they are, you'll be subject to a publication ban, and don't you dare say who it is. There is established a tribunal to be known as the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, consisting, subject to subsection 6, of a maximum of 20 members, including a chairperson. So Justin Trudeau is going to appoint 20 activists, friends, allies, liberal patronage donors to this human rights tribunal. They don't have to be judges. In fact, they're not judges. And they will rule on these cases of secret complaints against you in secret courts with secret evidence from secret sources. It's not Canadian. Now, what happens if you're convicted? Scroll ahead to 53.1. If at the conclusion of an inquiry, the member or panel conducting the inquiry finds that a complaint in relation to a discriminatory practice described in Section 13 is substantiated, the member or panel may make one or more of the following orders against the person found to be engaging or to have engaged in the discriminatory practice: in order to cease the discriminatory practice and take measures, in order to pay compensation of not more than $20,000 to any victim identified in the communication that constitute the discriminatory practice, an order to pay a penalty of not more than $50,000 to the receiver general. So a fine. So you have to pay the person, the race huckster, 20 grand, and you have to pay the government 50 grand based on whatever Trudeau's appointees say. Oh, and of course, Section 53.2, a member or panel conducting inquiry may award costs. So you have to pay 20 grand to the huckster, 50 grand to the government, and you have to pay for the costs of this Star Chamber prosecution. That could be $100 grand hit. Oh, and you'll never be able to find out who came for you. That's shocking to me.